Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the gritty, smelly, soap-starved world of medieval personal hygiene. You're walking through a muddy village road, sidestepping piles of something suspicious, passing cottages, where smoke drifts from low-thatched roofs and water sloshes in wooden buckets outside the doors. A pig squeals as it slips through a puddle, and someone nearby is definitely throwing waste out a window. No one's stopping to apologize. Welcome to a world where cleanliness wasn't so much a daily ritual as a fleeting accident. Let's be honest, you probably won't survive this level of filth. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, where are you watching from tonight? And what time is it in your part of the world? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to know. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It's the year 1324, and you live in a small English village. Your house is timber-framed, smoky, and barely big enough to swing a rat. Though there are probably a few of those living in the rafters already. You sleep on straw that hasn't been changed in weeks, maybe months. It's stuffed into a linen sack if you're lucky, or just piled loose on the floor if you're not. The smell of your own body, earthy, oily, occasionally sour, blends with the scent of sweat, soot, and cooked cabbage. It's not offensive. It's just life. Bathing. Oh, that's complicated. You don't have a bathtub. What you do have is a wooden wash tub often shared with the entire household. Water is fetched by hand, warmed over a fire, and poured in with painstaking care. And when it's finally full, it gets used by your parents, your siblings, maybe even the neighbors, one after the other, in order of importance. By the time it's your turn, you're sitting in water that looks like weak soup. But it's warm. And in winter, that counts for a lot. Soap, yes, there's soap, sort of. It's made from animal fat and wood ash boiled down into a lumpy grayish substance that can scrape off the worst of the grime. It's harsh, though, and stings if you've got cuts or sensitive skin. Some people, especially in cities, might have access to imported soap from places like Castile made with olive oil and smelling faintly of something floral. But unless you're rich or live near a monastery, your cleaning products are basic, brutal, and not especially pleasant. And even if you do bathe, the frequency is sparse. Maybe once a week if you're careful. More likely, once a season if water is scarce. Some church authorities even warned against bathing too often, claiming it opened the pores and made the soul and the body vulnerable to sin and disease. Clean skin was sometimes associated with moral weakness, believe it or not. So instead, people focused on what they called dry washing. You'd use a linen cloth to wipe your face and hands in the morning. Maybe sprinkle rose water on your wrists if you were wealthy. Comb your hair frequently, because cleanliness to them often meant order, not absence of dirt. A well-combed head was respectable. Tangled hair, on the other hand, was a sign of carelessness, madness, or low status. And remember, lice were a daily companion. Everyone had them. Rich or poor, no one escaped the constant itching. To manage it, people used fine-toothed combs carved from wood or horn. You'd comb your hair over a cloth to catch the wriggling passengers. Some folks used herbal treatments, lavender, rosemary, mint, to repel the bugs, though effectiveness varied. And shaving for men. Yes, beards were sometimes trimmed short or fully removed, depending on the fashion of the time and region. For women, grooming was more about discretion. Body hair wasn't a major concern unless you were part of a court where aesthetics mattered more. Let's talk about teeth. No toothbrushes, no toothpaste. But that doesn't mean people didn't care. They chewed herbs like mint, fennel, or parsley to freshen their breath. Ashes, salt, and crushed oyster shells were used to scrub the teeth. Some even chewed twigs, fraying the end into bristles to make a rudimentary brush. Dental decay existed, yes, but sugar was rare and expensive until later centuries. Most people had fewer cavities than we'd expect, though tooth loss from infections or abscesses was common. Smiles were often gap-toothed, but not necessarily blackened. And the bathroom. You don't have one. You might have a chamber pot under the bed emptied each morning into the nearest ditch stream or cesspit. If you're in a city, there might be public latrines, stone or wood benches over a channel of running water. But in most homes, you go outside. Behind the house, behind a hedge, into the woods. Wherever is convenient. Washing your hands afterward, maybe. If you remember. With water. If there's any. But here's the strange part, for all the filth, medieval people weren't unaware of cleanliness. They understood the connection between dirt and illness, even if they didn't know about bacteria. Cities passed ordinances about street cleaning. Monasteries had rules about hand washing. Physicians recommended washing the hands and face daily to maintain balance in the body's humors. Cleanliness in medieval terms wasn't about sterilization. It was about harmony. Not too hot, not too cold, not too dry, not too damp. And so hygiene practices were more about rhythm and ritual than sparkle and shine. You lie back now in your straw bed, the fire crackling low in the hearth. Your clothes smell of smoke and sheep's wool. Your feet are dusty. Your hair is braided to keep the lice at bay. But your body is your own. Your habits may be simple, but they're your form of control in a world governed by chaos, superstition, and mud. And in the faint glow of firelight, you feel it, the strange comfort of knowing that even when everything else is messy, you still try to stay clean in whatever small, determined way you can. The fire has burned down to embers and you're lying under a rough wool blanket, listening to the wind slip through the cracks in the walls. You pull the cover tighter, not just against the cold, but against the creeping awareness that tomorrow you'll wake up and do it all again. Wipe your face with a damp cloth comb, the lice from your hair. Try to feel clean in a world that doesn't prioritize it. Morning arrives not with an alarm, but with the sound of roosters, the creak of wood, the rustle of straw as the household stirs. There's no soap waiting for you on a tidy sink. There's a bucket outside, cold water collected from the well. If you're fortunate, it's been sitting by the fire for a few hours and isn't ice cold. But most mornings it is. You splash your face. The shock of it hits hard. There's no mirror, just the polished bottom of the bucket, or maybe a bit of metal nailed to a beam. You rub your eyes, wipe your hands dry on your tunic, and begin your day. In wealthier homes, manors, castles, even monasteries, there are slightly more refined routines. Nobles might begin the morning with servants bringing warmed water and a basin to their bedside. Linen cloths, perfumed oils, even silver-handled combs are laid out in neat rows. Hygiene here becomes performance. Ritual. A show of order and discipline, even if the actual practices don't go far beyond the basics. Still, the basics matter. You'd be surprised how much time is spent combing. Hair is long prone to knots and full of unwanted guests. Mothers comb children. Ladies comb their maids. Priests comb before prayer. Hair isn't cut often, but it's maintained because a tangled head is not just unattractive. It's suspicious. And it's not just about hair. Hands are cleaned several times a day, especially before meals. This is less about hygiene as we understand it, and more about etiquette. Eating with your hands is standard. Utensils are rare knives, mostly for cutting. So having clean hands signals respectability. In wealthier circles, water is poured over the hands of guests before and after meals caught in silver or bronze basins. In humbler homes, you use the same bucket that served for morning face washing. The water might be murky by now, but the gesture matters more than the outcome. Clean fingernails, not exactly a priority, but long, filthy nails are noticed, so people trim them with knives, bite them, scrape out the dirt with bits of twig. It's not glamorous. But again, respectability is a kind of cleanliness, even when dirt is everywhere. You begin your morning chores, feeding animals, gathering eggs, sweeping the floor with a bundled reed broom. It stirs up dust more than it clears it, but it's something. In towns, you'd see shopkeepers throwing water, or worse, their chamber pot contents into the street. And by mid-morning, the roads are slick with mud, food waste, horse droppings, and everything else no one wants inside. Still, towns have rules. In London, for example, by the late Middle Ages, laws are passed requiring householders to keep the street in front of their homes clean. But enforcement is lax. Waste piles up. Rats thrive. And during hot months, the stench becomes unbearable. People wear herbs in little pouches, nosegays, pomanders, sweet bags, just to breathe more comfortably. Some hang dried flowers around their necks. Some just learn to live with it. And in the midst of all this, bathhouses rise. Yes, bathhouses. Communal places for washing, scrubbing, sometimes even relaxing. Cities like Paris, London, and Cologne all boast public bathhouses where you can soak in hot water, be massaged with oils, and emerge feeling almost refreshed. These places are popular, even fashionable. For a few pennies, you can rent a tub or buy time in a heated pool. Some even offer snacks, music, and eventually services of a more intimate nature. That's where things get complicated. Because the bathhouse, for all its health benefits, becomes associated with sin, with lust, with the kind of mingling the church frowns upon. By the 14th century, many are shut down, not for lack of hygiene, but for moral panic. Still, some remain discreetly open. People crave cleanliness, even if it's scandalous. Meanwhile, in monasteries, hygiene is treated more seriously. Not out of vanity, but discipline. Monks bathe regularly, sometimes weekly, sometimes with every holy day, depending on the order. They wash their feet, clip their nails, shave their tonsures. Some monasteries have running water piped through the cloisters. It's not luxurious, but it's practical. The body must be tended to so the mind can focus on God. And what of women? Women in the medieval world maintain hygiene in private, subtle ways. They wash their undergarments more often than outerwear. They tend to their hair, their skin, and their children with quiet diligence. In childbirth, cleanliness is vital or as close to it as they can manage. Midwives use linen cloths, herbal washes, and sharp tools soaked in vinegar. They pass down knowledge from woman to woman, preserving traditions that won't be written down for centuries. You now heading to the village well pass a washerwoman elbow deep in gray water. She's scrubbing linen against a board, her hands red and raw. Soap made from lye and fat stings her skin, but she keeps going. Clothes are beaten, boiled, wrung out, then laid across hedges or bushes to dry. Laundry day is exhausting, but necessary. Clean clothes mean a clean body, or at least the illusion of one. Back in your cottage, you rinse your feet before bed. You dry them on a bit of cloth. You pick straw out of your hair. You scratch at a bite behind your knee and settle into your blanket. Tomorrow, you'll do it again. Not because anyone expects you to sparkle, but because beneath all the dirt, all the sweat, all the superstitions, there's something universal. You just want to feel human, clean even for a moment. You wake before the sun rises, the sky still painted in deep shades of blue and slate. The fire's gone cold overnight. and your breath fogs faintly as you sit up scratching at your shoulder. You slept in your shift, same as always, and it clings to your skin in places that haven't felt soap in days. But you've grown used to this feeling, the tightness, the heaviness, the simple fact that clean is less a reality and more a moment you chase once in a while. Before anything else, you reach for your comb. It's carved from wood, worn smooth along the edges, its teeth stained with oil and time. You sit near the hearth and draw it slowly through your hair, not to style it, but to free the strands of lice nits and tangles. It's a daily ritual, half habit, half hope. You hold a scrap of linen beneath your lap to catch whatever falls. No one likes to talk about it, but everyone does it. Your scalp stings a little from yesterday's scratches, and the comb pulls at the tender skin behind your ears. Still, you continue, because in the absence of luxury, rhythm becomes its own comfort. Your water basin is already lukewarm from being set near the hearth last night. You soak a linen cloth in it and wipe your face, your neck, the backs of your ears. It doesn't feel like bathing exactly, but it freshens you enough to keep going. You swish a mouthful of water around your teeth, spit into the ashes near the hearth, and chew a sprig of mint someone grew in a pot by the door. The taste is sharp, clean, and for a few seconds your mouth feels alive. You stretch your arms and look down at your hands, dirt embedded under the nails, palms stained from yesterday's work. You take a scrap of wool rough and folded like a pad and scrub, then a little ash and water. It helps even if the skin reddens. Clean enough. Today is market day, and the village is already stirring. As you step outside, you pass the open ditch that lines the road. It's filled with stagnant water, last night's waste, and something unidentifiable floating near the edge. You hold your breath as you walk past, just like everyone else. The scent lingers in your hair, though, and no amount of mint can wash it away. In town, you're more aware than usual of your appearance. This isn't vanity, it's strategy. Looking unkempt might invite gossip. Looking too neat might attract suspicion. So you aim for appropriate. You've mended your gown's hem, pinned your veil in place, and made sure your hands are mostly clean. A little lavender water dabbed behind the ears might signal you're not careless, even if that lavender water was stretched from one bunch of herbs and a week-old jug of rain. The market is crowded, muddy boots clattering carts, cries of sellers calling out fish bread onions. You pass a barber surgeon setting up his stool. His tools glint in the light iron shears, tweezers, razors, cups for bloodletting. People line up not just for haircuts, but for tooth pulling, abscess lancing, even minor surgery. Hygiene here is functional, not gentle. A toothache means a blackened molar ripped free with no anesthetic, a rag to bite down on, and a prayer that the infection doesn't spread. No one thinks of it as clean, only necessary. You pause to look at soaps sold by a traveling merchant. They're small, rough cakes, gray and brown, some tinged green with herbs. Tallow and ash mixed with mint or marjoram. You can't afford the fine Castilian bars, but these homemade lumps do the job. You sniff one pungent, sharp, and strangely comforting. You buy a piece with the few coins tucked into your sash, then wrap it in cloth and tuck it away. It'll last a month. After your errands, you find your way to the edge of town where the bathhouse used to be. It's boarded up now, closed after a priest declared it a place of temptation. But people still gather near the stream behind it. You join a few women rinsing laundry against rocks, the cold water numbing your fingertips. You scrub your underlinen not because it's expected, but because you want to. You want that feeling of wrapping yourself in something that smells like air and water, not smoke and skin. As the cloth dries on a branch, you dip your feet into the stream. It's shockingly cold, and you gasp, but you don't pull away. You scrub your heels, your ankles, your calves. Mud lifts off in swirls. You feel the weight of the week leave your bones. It's not a full bath, but it's enough to remember you have skin, that you're not just layers of dirt and labor, that beneath it all, you are there. By the time the sun begins to dip, you're home again. You reheat water for tea using dried sage and fennel seeds. The scent fills the cottage. You use the same herbs to rinse your hands and face once more. A trick passed down from your grandmother: clean your hands before dark, so you don't take the day's sins into your dreams. You eat a bit of bread, some beans. The fire pops, and then with your hair freshly braided, you slide into your straw-stuffed bedding blanket pulled up to your chin. Your body aches, but it's not the worst day you've had. Your fingernails are cleaner than usual. Your breath still tastes faintly of mint. And the soap you bought lies beside you wrapped in linen waiting for next time. And as you drift off to sleep, you realize that medieval hygiene isn't about luxury. It's about effort, quiet, consistent, unglamorous effort. And in a world of dirt, darkness, and decay, that effort is everything. You wake to a sky already humming with bird song and the low clatter of wooden wheels on cobblestone. The village is alive, the rhythm of medieval life turning again, and with it your well-worn routines. You stretch in your straw bed, feeling each muscle resist before it releases. The warmth of your blanket clings to your skin, but so does the faint itch of dried sweat and the persistent grit of yesterday's dust. You swing your legs over the side of the bed and feel the cool stone floor beneath your feet. There are no slippers waiting, no plush robe, just a linen shift in the chill of morning. You shuffle toward the basin, where yesterday's wash water still rests cloudy now, with a skin of dust across the top. You splash your face anyway. Cold, sharp, necessary. The linen cloth you used yesterday is still damp. You wring it out and begin again, forehead, cheeks, under the chin, back of the neck. You clean the places that feel most human, most exposed. There's no soap this morning, just water and friction and habit. The simplicity of it is almost soothing. Outside, the air smells of wet soil, wood smoke, and manure. You step through the threshold of your home into a world where the line between inside and outside barely exists. The chickens are already pecking at the ground. Your neighbor is drawing water from the well. And you're heading toward the garden, not just for food, but for something rarer: freshness. Your garden grows more than onions and beans. It's got yarrow and sage, thyme and lavender, a bit of rue if you're careful with it. These herbs aren't just for cooking. They're your medieval arsenal for staying clean. You gather sprigs of rosemary and toss a few into your pocket. Their scent will cling to you, masking the smoke and sweat you'll accumulate by noon. Today, you're on laundry duty. You carry your linen shift and woolen overdress to the stream just outside the village. There's a hollowed-out tree stump there used like a makeshift washboard. Other women are already gathered, their sleeves rolled up, arms deep in suds. The scene is more than chore, it's community. A place to share gossip, to trade remedies, to teach daughters how to scrub without tearing the seams. You sit by the edge and unwrap your precious soap. A lump of tallow and lye scented faintly with marjoram. You wet your shift, rub the soap in with strong fingers, then begin scrubbing it against the wood. The water turns cloudy, then dark. You rinse and repeat until it feels lighter in your hands. Not clean, perhaps, in the modern sense, but renewed. Once done, you spread it across a patch of sun-drenched grass, holding it down with stones so the wind doesn't steal it. Then you join the others in rinsing hands, wiping brows, flicking droplets toward your feet just for a moment of cool. Afterward, you return home with the damp linen folded over your arm and the warm satisfaction of having done something essential. You hang it by the hearth and let it dry while you clean your comb. Combs in this world are not decorative. They're tools used daily, even obsessively. They're rinsed in vinegar, scraped clean, with a pin sometimes rubbed with lavender or mint to deter lice. You've learned how to check the seams of your garments for nits, how to boil your headscarf once a month, how to braid your hair tightly before bed to keep the pests at bay. And while you may never be free of them entirely, these rituals are your line of defense. You take a midday break beneath the tree outside your cottage. A flatbread and cheese in one hand, a small cloth bundle in the other, filled with thyme and dried rose petals. You press it to your nose as you eat. It's not perfume. It's protection. The streets in the village center by this hour are soupy with waste, mud mixed with rot. You step carefully, skirts raised just enough not to trail. You pass a cart hauling off refuse, some of it animal, some of it not. The smell is overpowering, but people walk past it, breathe through it, live with it. Because there's no plumbing, no underground sewer, just ditches, cesspits, and the occasional trench lined with straw. The term night soil refers to exactly what you fear it does, and someone has to shovel it, transport it, bury it. It's unpleasant, but essential. And while it seems medieval people lived in filth, they didn't necessarily accept it. Cities had fines for dumping waste in the wrong place. Tanners and butchers were pushed to the edges of towns. Monasteries designed aqueducts and drains. Cleanliness wasn't dismissed. It just looked different. You stop by the church before sunset. Not for prayer this time, but to use the lavatorium. A small stone alcove with a basin where pilgrims and clergy wash their hands. It's rudimentary, but steady water trickles from a carved spout, and for once it's fresh. You rinse your fingers, splash your face, and feel briefly whole. Back home, you stoke the fire, remove your overdress, and check the drying shift by the hearth. It's warm, almost crisp. You change into it, the fabric soft against your skin. You comb your hair one last time, tie it back. Then you sit quietly, a cup of warm fennel tea in your hand. This is Hygiene medieval style. Not glamorous, not scented, but deeply human. 1,000 small efforts to pull yourself back from the edge of decay, to create order out of mess, to assert control over a world that is always trying to swallow you in dirt and sweat and soil. You rest your eyes, hands folded over your stomach, the firelight painting the walls gold. And as you drift off, you understand something rare and quiet. In the medieval world, staying clean was an act of resistance. The wind taps gently against the shutters as dawn creeps into the sky, staining the clouds with pale streaks of rose and smoke. You stir beneath your blanket, the scent of wood ash and wool lingering close. Your body aches not from anything dramatic, just the slow grind of living. The same grind that wears down teeth, stiffens joints, and fills your nails with earth. But today, like every other day, begins with the quiet practice of pulling yourself together. Hygiene one gesture at a time. You reach for your linen cloth, rinse it in the basin, and press it to your eyes. The coolness wakes you. You rub your temples, your jaw, the back of your neck. You don't think of it as self-care. That phrase doesn't exist here. It's just what people do. A small resistance to the mess of life. A rhythm. Outside the village is already in motion. Smoke curls from chimneys. Chickens cluck in their pens. Children run barefoot through puddles that never fully dry. You step outside and breathe deeply. The air smells like wet grass and damp animals and something faintly sweet, someone's baking bread nearby. You make your way to the monastery. Today you're helping in the infirmary. Medieval hospitals are not hospitals in the modern sense. They're religious institutions, places where the sick are tended to, not cured. Cleanliness here is deeply spiritual. The body is considered a vessel, a temple, a test, and tending to it, washing the dying, cutting hair from the infected scalp, sponging away sweat from a fevered brow is seen as an act of mercy, a pathway to heaven. The infirmary smells of vinegar, old wood, and rosemary. Bowls of herbs sit on windowsills, soaking in oil or steeping in water. There are bundles of sage tied with thread, piles of linen strips for wrapping wounds, buckets of rainwater waiting to be boiled. You've learned to heat the knives before they're used, to rinse them in brine, to fold the cloth, once, then twice, before pressing it to a wound. There is no such thing as sterile, but there is clean enough. And in a world where medicine is as much prayer as practice, hygiene becomes a sacred act. You wash your hands in a basin of rosemary water. It doesn't kill germs, no one knows what germs are, but it soothes the skin and keeps you from smelling like death. You change the linens on a cot, then help bathe an elderly man whose skin is covered in sores. You work slowly, gently, wiping with soft cloths, careful not to let the water cool too much. He doesn't speak, but he sighs when the warmth touches his shoulders. You see it in his eyes, he remembers what it feels like to be human. Later, you clean the tools, combs, shears, a shallow bowl used to drain a boil. Everything is wiped, dried, stored. You boil the linens if there's time and firewood enough. Otherwise, they're rinsed and laid flat on rocks outside the monastery wall. The monks believe that illness comes from imbalance. Too much black bile, too little phlegm, or sometimes just the weight of sin. They treat the body with herbs, fasting, and bleeding. But underneath it all, they understand something deeply human. A clean bed, a clean cloth, and a warm basin of water can do what medicine often cannot restore: dignity. After your work, you wander to the cloister's edge. There's a small fountain there, pure spring water, cold and constant. You dip your hands and rinse your face and close your eyes. You're not thinking of beauty. You're not even thinking of cleanliness. You're thinking of relief. Back in the village, there's less ritual, but just as much need. A mother pulls lice from her daughter's hair using a heated comb and her own fingernails. A baker scrubs his hands raw with vinegar before kneading the dough. A blacksmith rinses his arms in a trough after an hour of sparks and smoke. None of them call it hygiene. None of them would use that word. But they know instinctively that the body needs tending, that water heals more than just skin. You stop by the well to draw a fresh bucket. A boy stands beside you, scrubbing his feet with a rag. You hand him the soap from your pocket, and he grins. He's missing 2 teeth. The remaining ones are surprisingly white. He doesn't know it, but his lack of sugar has protected him better than most medieval doctors could. You head home with your bucket swinging from one hand, the sun slanting gold through the trees. Your shift clings to your back, damp with sweat. You wipe your brow and smile despite the grime. There's a strange pride in knowing you've fought dirt all day and still managed to feel like yourself. That evening, you heat a pot of water. You drop in crushed mint and a few sprigs of rosemary. You rinse your hands, your feet, your face. You press a damp cloth to your chest, your shoulders, your belly. You breathe in the steam and feel the ache ease from your bones. There is no soap advertisement, no perfume, no towel softer than old linen. But you are clean, and in this world that is a kind of grace. You sit near the hearth as the last light fades. Your comb lies beside you, teeth dry, ready for tomorrow. Your shift smells faintly of herbs and smoke and skin. And as you close your eyes, you think of the monks and their belief cleanliness may not cure, but it comforts. And tonight, comfort is more than enough. The wind changes with the season. A colder bite creeps into the mornings, now the kind that stings your fingers when you lift the water bucket and makes the hearth a place of refuge rather than routine. With the chill comes dampness. Clothes take longer to dry. Mud clings more stubbornly to your boots, and the small, simple acts of cleanliness become harder but more necessary than ever. You wake beneath layers of wool and linen, your breath visible in the air above you. Your straw mattress is musty, a little damp near the edges, and the floor is so cold it feels like stone even when covered in rushes. But you rise anyway, wrapping yourself in your shawl and padding to the hearth. The embers are still glowing from last night. You add kindling blow gently and coax the fire back to life. Water first. Always water. You pour from the bucket into your iron kettle and set it over the flames. While it heats, you run your fingers through your hair. It's drier now, cold weather does that, but still tangled, still harboring the familiar itch. You fetch your comb already cool to the touch and begin the slow process of pulling it through. You catch a louse, then another. You drop them into the fire without blinking. You've learned to do this without flinching. Once the water is warm enough, you dip a cloth in and begin your morning wipe down face, neck, hands, underarms, and behind the knees. You do it quickly before the warmth fades. In winter, you don't have the luxury of lingering. The cold makes cleanliness a race against time. And yet people still try. In town, bathhouses have begun to close for the season, public ones at least. Heating water in large volumes becomes expensive and dangerous. But in monasteries and noble homes, the ritual continues. Metal tubs are placed near fires, wooden screens drawn around them for modesty. Servants carry buckets back and forth. Herbs are steeped in the water to keep illness at bay, sage, thyme, rue. And the bath, while brief, is a moment of renewal. You've only seen one once. A stone tub half sunk into the floor of a steward's manor, filled with steam and rose petals. The scent was almost overwhelming. The lady who used it emerged wrapped in linen, her hair braided in coils, her skin glistening like alabaster. You weren't jealous, just curious. Because your experience of bathing is very different. Your tub, when you use one, is wooden, round, barely large enough to sit in. It takes half a day to heat enough water. And when it's full, everyone uses it, father, mother, siblings, cousins. You go last, by which time the water is cloudy, lukewarm, and laced with soap scum. But still, it's warm. It's water. And in that moment, you feel the layers of the world slide off your skin. You bathe maybe once a fortnight in winter. Less if fuel is low. Some villagers believe that too much bathing weakens the body's resistance to cold, that it strips away the natural oils that protect the skin. There's even a rumor told in fearful tones that bathing opens the pores too wide, letting disease slip in with the chill. So people keep clean in other ways. You switch to dry bathing, rubbing your skin with linen cloths, dusting problem areas with powdered herbs, brushing your teeth with crushed sage or salted ash, chewing fennel seeds to freshen your breath. You pin bundles of lavender in your sleeves. You oil your comb with rosemary to keep lice at bay. And you change your clothes more often than you wash your body. Underlinen, that is. The layer closest to your skin. You wash it as often as you can manage, scrubbing it against stones, boiling it in pots, hanging it by the hearth. Outer garments. They're rarely washed. Too precious. Too difficult to dry. You beat the dust out of them with sticks, air them in the wind, brush them with stiff bristles. It's enough. Today you decide to clean your bedding. A rare and laborious task. You strip the straw sack and carry the contents outside. The straw is musty, crushed, full of mites. You toss it into the garden for compost and start over. Fresh straw gathered yesterday from the field is packed tightly into the sack. It smells sweet, earthy, clean, honest. You sprinkle it with lavender and tuck it back into place. Then you wash the linen cover. It's heavy, soaked through, stubborn with stains. You scrub it against a board, your arms aching, your fingers red and raw. But by midday it's clean, or at least cleaner than it was. You hang it in the sun and hope the clouds hold off. You feel lighter afterward, like your home has taken a deep breath. In the afternoon, you help an older neighbor clean her hearth. She shows you how to mix vinegar and ash into a cleaning paste, how to rinse with rainwater, how to dry the stone with heated cloths to keep it from cracking in the cold. She doesn't speak much, but her eyes sparkle when she catches you breathing in the scent of thyme she's hung above the doorway. You don't need to smell like roses, she says, just not like rot. That evening, you use the last of your soap to wash your feet. They ache from the cold, but the water helps. You dry them thoroughly and rub rosemary oil into the cracked skin around your heels. It stings, but afterward, you feel warm again, grounded. You sit by the fire, watching it dance, listening to the logs crackle. The wind howls outside, but you feel something rare and steady settle in your chest, a kind of order. You've kept the chaos at bay today. You've scrubbed it out of your clothes, wrung it from your linens, combed it from your hair. And in a world where so much is beyond your control, weather, war, illness, fate, this one thing, this effort to stay clean, feels like a victory, even if no one sees it. Even if no one says thank you. You know, and that's enough. The wind has stilled by morning, and the frost clings to the windows like lace. You sit near the hearth again, your wool-wrapped fingers nursing a warm bowl of barley broth, the steam curling around your cheeks. The world outside is bone cold, but in here you have a little warmth, and the fading scent of rosemary still clings faintly to your skin. It's comforting, this morning ritual. The stillness, the familiarity, the quiet work of being clean in a time that rarely allowed it. As the village wakes, you listen. A baby wails in the cottage across the way. Chickens rustle in their coop. The distant thunk of wood being chopped marks another day of labor. You watch as your neighbors begin their own routines, hauling buckets, sweeping floors, shaking out rugs. Everyone is cleaning something, but not because it makes them feel polished or pure. No, it's about function, preservation. Health in a way they understand more through intuition than science. Because while medieval people didn't know about bacteria, they knew what rot looked like. They knew what decay smelled like. And they knew what happened when those things crept too close to the body. So they fought it with ash and vinegar water and fire. You grab a broom and begin sweeping the floor of your own cottage. Not the modern sweep and done. It's a process. The rushes on the ground, your version of carpet, are stale now, mixed with food crumbs, soot herbs, maybe even mouse droppings. You rake them into a pile and toss them out back. Later, you'll scatter fresh rushes, maybe dried mint or marjoram mixed in to keep the air sharp and clean. It's not just about the look, it's about the scent. The feeling, the space that tells your body, this is yours, this is safe. Later in the day, you walk into town with a small pouch of dried herbs and 2 clean cloths bound and tucked under your arm. You're headed to visit a friend who's recently given birth. And you know what that means. Hygiene, more than ever, is about survival. Childbirth in the medieval world is risky, sacred, messy, and deeply communal. You step into her home, which is already warm and close, heavy with the scent of blood and broth. The midwife greets you with a nod. She's already washed her hands in vinegar, dried them on boiled cloths. You kneel by the hearth and begin steeping the herbs you've brought: chamomile, sage, comfrey. This isn't a luxury, it's necessity. The herbal wash will be used to clean the mother's legs, to soak rags, to rinse the baby. Everything here is soaked in care, painful, practical care. Clean linen is laid under the child. Warm water is poured into bowls and kept near the fire. Hands are cleaned before they touch the mother. Again after. Tools are passed carefully, often wiped with wine or vinegar. The room is still and reverent, but also intensely aware. One mistake, a bit of spoiled cloth, a dirty blade, could mean fever, and fever often means death. So everyone is meticulous, even without knowing the word. When the child is finally swaddled and the mother sleeping, you and the midwife begin the cleanup. You burn the used cloths that can't be saved. You reboil the ones that can. You rinse the knives and scissors, then lay them on a hot stone near the fire to dry. You wipe down surfaces with cloths soaked in thyme water. You open the window for just a moment and let the sharp, cold air bite through the room. When you leave, you feel exhausted, but also clean, cleansed even, because you've helped hold back the darkness again just a little longer. Back in your own home, you strip down to your shift and sponge your arms and legs with the leftover herb water. Your skin stings in places where the cold has cracked it. But beneath that sting is something satisfying, a sense that your body is for once fully yours. Not perfect, not perfumed, but tended to. And that means something. You change into a fresh shift, not because anyone will see it, but because you will feel it. The linen still smells faintly of soap and sun. You press your palm to your stomach, your breath slowing, your eyes drifting shut. You think again of the woman you helped today, how vulnerable she looked, how strong she was, how closely survival clung to the most basic things: heat, water, cloth, hands. And then your thoughts drift to the old woman who lives on the edge of the village, the one they call peculiar, who walks barefoot, collects rainwater in clay jugs, and scrubs her own floors with a mix of crushed garlic and vinegar. They whisper that she's strange, that her home smells too clean, that she knows too much about plants and illness and rot. But you know better. She's not strange. She's wise. She knows what can hide in dirt, what can creep in through open wounds and broken skin. And she's chosen to push back every day with her own kind of medicine. Her hygiene is defiance, and maybe yours is too. Because in this time to wash your face, to boil your linens, to oil your comb, to rinse your mouth with mint and salt water, these are not meaningless routines. They are rituals. They are protection. They are a way of saying, I am still here, still trying. And as you pull your blanket up and settle against the mattress freshly packed with straw and thyme, you realize every small act of care is a declaration that your body is not a battlefield. It is a home worth keeping clean. The morning arrives thick with fog that clings low to the ground, like breath that refuses to fade. Everything is damp. The thatch drips. The wooden beams inside your cottage feel cool and slick to the touch. Your clothes, though, hung near the fire last night, still hold a whisper of yesterday's smoke and sweat. You rise slowly, brushing straw from your shift, and reach for your comb, already knowing what you'll find. Lice. Again. It's not failure. It's simply life. In the medieval world, you're never without them. You're just managing them. So you sit near the hearth, open the shutters just a crack for light, and begin your daily grooming. The comb moves with practiced strokes. You tilt your head, catch the crawl of something between your fingers and flick it into the coals. The fire hisses softly. One down. Dozens to go. Once done, you dust your hair with a pinch of lavender crushed into salt. It won't kill the lice, but it might keep them shy. Then you rinse your face with yesterday's mint water, cold now, but still fragrant. You dry with a bit of linen that smells faintly of damp stone. There's no soap left today. That too is normal. You ration it carefully, saving it for the truly bad days, illness, blood, childbirth, or burial. You leave the cottage, feet wrapped in wool and leather, heading toward the woods. You're not foraging for food this time, but for cleanliness. Your body may live in dirt, but your mind remembers what it feels like to be fresh. And that feeling drives you now into the green hush of the forest. You know the plants by sight and by smell. Soapwort, whose leaves and roots lather when crushed and boiled. Horsetail rich in silica, perfect for scrubbing pots and occasionally teeth. Woodruff and violet for scent. Pine needles for a makeshift rinse. You collect them all, tucking them into your apron hands, stained green with sap by the time you return home. Inside you boil water. You crush the soapwort root, watching it bubble faintly as it steeps. You pour the mixture into a basin, and for the first time in weeks, you soak a cloth and scrub your arms from shoulder to wrist. Then your legs, your feet. You wring the cloth, change the water, do it again. The smell of crushed leaves fills the air. You're still not clean by modern standards, but your skin feels new, a little lighter, a little more yours. In the village square, others are doing the same in their own way. A boy rubs his hands with vinegar after sweeping the church steps. A washerwoman dips a cloth into wine and dabs at a wound on her husband's arm. A young girl scrapes her fingernails with a knife, then rubs rosemary behind her ears before a festival dance. Everyone in their own quiet way fights the creeping weight of filth. And then, of course, there's the priest. He gives a sermon today, something about the body being temporary, the soul eternal. He speaks against vanity, against obsession with appearances. But still, his hands are soft, and he wears a dab of scented oil on his collar. A contradiction, perhaps. Or perhaps even he knows that a bit of cleanliness, even dressed as piety, feels like power. Later that afternoon, you gather with other women to boil laundry in the common pot. It's large enough to fit several garments, each turned gray from ash and time. You take turns stirring with a long stick. The water bubbles. Steam clings to your cheeks and curls into your hair. It smells of tallow herbs and smoke, a mixture of survival and memory. You watch as one woman pulls her shift from the potholes stitched carefully with red thread seams, mended and remended. It's clean now, clean enough to wear again, to feel presentable, to feel real. Because wearing something clean in this world isn't just about the cloth, it's about the mind. The way your thoughts feel less tangled when your hair is combed. The way your breath feels steadier after rinsing your mouth. The way your shoulders loosen when your feet are scrubbed. In a time when filth is everywhere, seeping from the streets, slipping through the walls, whispering from the corners, these small rituals are anchors. You return home with your clothes wrapped tight, pressed between warm bricks to dry. You change near the hearth, pulling on a fresh chemise. It's scratchy from the wash, stiff at the seams, but it smells of mint and ash. You let your hair down, comb it once more, and rub rosemary oil into your wrists. Then you sit. Not to eat, not to stitch, just to exist. You close your eyes and breathe. Your body, though still bearing the marks of labor, feels contained. The boundaries between skin and world feel defined again. This is what cleanliness means to you, not perfection, not purity, but self-recognition. And as the sun sinks low and the shadows stretch across the stone floor, you understand what the church never quite taught. That to care for the body is not vanity. It is remembrance. A way to say I am alive. I am worthy of comfort. I am still here. And tonight as you curl beneath your blanket feet, wrapped in freshly washed linen, you do not dream of castles or courts. You dream of warm basins, of mint and steam, of water poured slowly over tired hands. Because sometimes in the medieval world, that was the closest thing to heaven. The morning fog lifts slowly, revealing a world that looks nearly the same as the one you left behind yesterday. But there's something subtle that's shifted a quiet pride in your bones, perhaps. The afterglow of having done something good, even if only for yourself. Clean linens, combed hair, a boiled washcloth. These aren't grand victories, but in your world, they're defiant ones. You move through the quiet hush of the morning feet, bare on the cool rushes that line your floor. They need replacing again. There's a sourness in them now, a heaviness that clings. You'll gather more soon, maybe trade with the old man near the woods who always collects bundles for the church. But first your face, you splash water on your cheeks quickly before it loses its warmth. Your reflection in the basin is blurry, distorted, but you lean in anyway. There's dirt beneath your nails. There always is. Your lips are chapped, your cheeks wind-bitten, and your eyes heavy from waking early in a world that never really sleeps. Still, you're present, still whole. You tie your hair in a tight braid today, careful to work a sprig of rue into the knot. It's not just for scent, it's for superstition. Rue is said to ward off illness, bad spirits, even unwanted stares. Whether or not it works, it helps you feel stronger. In the absence of modern science, belief fills the space. By mid-morning, you're helping with preparations for a village feast. It's not a festival exactly, just one of those rare moments when enough harvest has come in to make people feel generous. There's boar turning on a spit, barley loaves baking in clay ovens. And you're on dish duty, which in this time is a whole event. Dishes are made of wood mostly, sometimes pewter if the family's wealthy, rarely clay as it chips and breaks too easily. But all of them need scrubbing after use, no running water, no soap dispensers, just buckets, grit, and vinegar. You use handfuls of ash mixed with sand as a scouring powder, your fingers raw by the time the fourth bowl is clean. You rinse with rainwater, pour the gray water into the garden trench, and set the dishes upside down on a board to dry in the sun. It's not sterile, but it's effective. You also clean knives and spoons, wiping them carefully with a linen cloth soaked in wine. The acidity, you're told, keeps illness away. And perhaps it does. But even if it didn't, you'd still do it. Because doing something matters more than knowing whether it works. Later during the feast, you see it. The way people brush crumbs from their laps. The way they wipe their hands on cloths. The way they chew, slowly drink cautiously. Everyone here is aware deeply so of their bodies, their boundaries. No one here takes cleanliness for granted. It's not invisible like it is in modern times. It's visible, vivid, earned. One of the village elders gives a short toast before the meal. He thanks the land, the rain, the saints, the laborers. Then half-jokingly, he thanks the washerwomen. Everyone laughs, but you can tell it's not just a joke. They know. Without clean pots, there is no stew. Without clean hands, there is no bread. Without careful tending, filth spreads faster than stories. After the feast, the cleanup begins again. You join the others near the stream with armfuls of bowls and scraps of cloth. You scrub, rinse, scrub again, You trade tips how mint leaves keep your water from turning foul, how to boil cloth with vinegar to make it softer. The stream smells of wet leaves and crushed herbs, and your hands are red from cold by the time the last bowl is cleaned. You return home just as the sun dips below the treetops. Your shift is damp again at the sleeves. You hang it near the hearth strip to your underlinen and curl near the flames with a small pot of warm rosemary tea. Your feet throb. Your hands are sore. And yet beneath the ache, there's a kind of pride that can't be faked. Because while others danced and sang and feasted, you held the line against dirt and disorder. You kept the bowls clean, the spoons polished, the cloths from turning rancid. You made the world feel livable for one more day. And when you lie down that night pulling a newly brushed wool blanket up to your chin, you think not of grand castles or noble lords, but of the quiet dignity that comes from doing something right even when no one is watching. A fresh rush of cool air pushes through the shutters, but your bed is warm. Your mind settles. Your body, though weary, feels like yours again. And in the stillness before sleep, you realize cleanliness in the medieval world wasn't about smelling sweet or looking beautiful. It was about claiming space in your body, in your home, in your world. A small, persistent stand against the chaos. By now, the rhythm is familiar. Not easy, but known. You wake to a world chilled and humming with the quiet life of dawn. Somewhere a rooster calls out like a cracked bell. Wood smoke coils from chimneys. The earth outside your door glistens with frost, and your breath blooms into the air as you stretch beneath your shawl. Before anything else, you check your water. The bucket is half full enough for a cloth wash. You dip your fingers in. Cold as always, but clean. That word again, clean. It means something different to you than it will centuries later. You don't expect sterility. You don't dream of citrus-scented soaps or bleach. You only want water that doesn't smell of rot. A cloth that hasn't already wiped another body. A moment that belongs only to you. You dampen a corner of your linen rag and begin the day's wipe down eyes, neck, underarms, feet. You skip the legs this time too cold, but pay extra attention to your hands. You rub them with ash first, then rinse, scrubbing into the creases under the nails until they sting. Not for appearances, for peace of mind. Your stomach growls, but there's no time for a full meal. You grab a crust of bread, chew it slowly, and head toward the manor. You've been asked to help with preparations for a noblewoman's visit, and that means more cleaning, just on a grander, shinier scale. The manor is already buzzing by the time you arrive. Servants dart across the great hall with arms full of cloth pewter firewood. You're handed a bucket and brush without words. The floors need scrubbing. The rushes must be replaced. Everything must smell faintly of time and look like it's never been lived in. You kneel and begin your work. You scour the stone floor with a mixture of vinegar and warm water. It fizzes slightly in the cracks. You scrub until your arms ache, until your knees feel bruised, until your fingers are puckered and raw. But when you lean back to inspect the path you've cleared, there's something satisfying in it. A narrow, glistening stripe of done in a world full of not yet. Later, you help dust the tapestries. A fine film of dirt clings to everything. You use a cloth soaked in lavender water wrung nearly dry. You clean carefully around the stitched threads, each depicting saints, battles, or biblical women who, ironically, are all drawn spotless and glowing, as though they've never touched ash or bled or birthed or wept, as though they have always smelled of rose water. But you know better. Cleanliness, real cleanliness, is not holy or passive. It is work. intimate, gritty, humbling work. You are asked to prepare a bath for the lady's arrival. Not for yourself, of course not. But it means carrying buckets of heated water from the kitchen to the upper chamber. It takes 9 trips. Each bucket sloshes and scalds. Your arms shake by the 5th. The bath itself is a low copper tub. Into it you pour the steaming water and then crush herbs, rose petals, chamomile hyssop. You light a beeswax candle, arrange a brush, a cloth, a flask of almond oil. You're not asked to stay during the bath, but you know the order of it. A servant will pour water gently over the lady's hair. Another will scrub her feet. A third will help her dress. None of them will speak unless spoken to. After the bath, she will smell like a garden at dusk. And her body, however imperfect, will be praised as fine and delicate because it is wrapped in luxury and touched by no labor. You return to your home late, your shift damp with sweat and effort. You draw your own water only half warm and scrub your hands again. You shake the ache from your fingers. Then from a pouch you tucked into your apron earlier, you pull out a sliver of lavender soap, a bit left behind near the lady's basin. It's yours now. You press it to your palm and inhale. It smells like wealth. You cut the sliver in half, hide one part beneath your mattress, and use the rest sparingly, just enough to rinse your wrists and the back of your neck. The smell is too strong, too floral, but it lifts you, just a little. That night you stretch out in bed, your muscles humming. Your hair is still unwashed, your feet still rough, but your hands are soft with oil. The good kind. The kind used for someone else's beauty, now smuggled into your own quiet ritual. You smile, because today, even in service, you managed to carry something back for you. A bit of their luxury repurposed as your comfort. Not stolen. Earned. And in a time when your worth is often measured by how much dirt you can remove from someone else's world, that small act of self-hygiene feels almost radical. You press your face into your clean linen, thick with the scent of rosemary and ash, and let the fatigue wash through you. You are tired, but you are still tending, still claiming your place in the world, one scrub, one comb, one basin at a time. The sun rises late these days, barely cresting the edge of the hills before retreating behind heavy clouds. The light that does filter through the shutters is pale and watery, like it's struggling to warm the earth. You sit up slowly, rubbing your wrists, which still ache from yesterday's hauling. The scent of lavender soap still clings faintly to your pillow. It's a small, private joy, but it reminds you, even on days like this, there is still ritual. Your morning routine is slower now. The cold seeps into your joints. The cloth you use to wash is stiff with frost, and you have to hold it near the hearth just to make it pliable. But you do it anyway, because no matter how tired you are, hygiene isn't optional. Not in this world. Not when infection lurks behind every scratch. Not when wounds can fester from something as simple as an untended splinter. So you clean carefully. You pick dirt from your fingernails with a sharpened twig. You scrub your feet and between your toes. You warm a dab of tallow in your hands and rub it into the cracked skin at your heels. The tallow stinks a bit thick and animal, but it softens the burn and protects you from worse. Later, while mending clothes by the fire, your needle slips and pricks your finger. Just a small puncture. But it bleeds, and you don't ignore it. You rinse it in wine sharp stingy and press it with a clean strip of cloth. You've seen what happens when these tiny cuts are ignored. A red line creeping up the arm. Fever. Shaking. Death. So you bandage it carefully and take no chances. Around midday, a boy from down the lane comes knocking. His mother is sick, he says, fever-shaking rash around her mouth. You grab your herb pouch and follow him. Inside her cottage, it's warm, too warm. The windows are closed tight. The rushes smell of sour milk. You ask for hot water and vinegar and begin by wiping down her face, her hands. You ask when she last bathed. The boy shrugs. She said she didn't want to, that it would make it worse. You've heard this before. Some believe water invites illness, that pores open like doors to let disease inside. But you've learned the truth is the opposite. You help her bathe gently with warm water and marjoram. You clean her bedding, lay it near the hearth to dry. You scrub the floorboards beneath her with vinegar and thyme, letting the scent fill the room. You teach the boy to boil cloth, to wash his hands after each touch. You're not a healer. You're not a midwife. But you know that cleanliness can mean survival. Before leaving, you give the boy a bundle of sage and a pot of salt. For steeping, you say. He doesn't understand, not really, but he nods, and that's enough. On your walk home, you pass the town tannery. The smell is as awful as ever, stale urine, rotting flesh, thick smoke, but you pause. The tanners are working shirtless, their arms slick with brine and blood. They don't bother with cloths. They clean by soaking in the same vats they use for hides. You think about how different lives determine different ideas of clean. For them, it's not about softness or scent. It's about stripping what's unwanted. You step aside as a man throws a pail of slop into the ditch. It splashes dangerously close to your boots. Another reason you clean your shoes with lye and ash every evening. That night, back in your cottage, you prepare your own version of a foot bath. Not the luxury of warm rose water in a copper tub. Just a wooden basin, a few needles of pine, and heated water from the kettle. You lower your feet in slowly. The pain gives way to comfort. You lean back. Breathe. And you think about how your understanding of hygiene has changed. When you were young, you believed it was about looking good, presenting well, maybe even about pleasing others. But now you understand it's about control, about boundaries, about honoring the body that carries you through mud and sickness and pain. You've cleaned the skin of others, the floors they walk on, the bowls they eat from. But now tonight, you clean yourself. You dry your feet, rub them with oil, comb your hair now mostly free of lice. You change into your cleanest shift, the one patched too many times to count, and stretch out beneath the blanket packed with rosemary sprigs. Your hands still smell faintly of vinegar and sage, and you are glad for it. Because in a time when death lingers so closely, when illness can strike without warning, when the world feels full of filth and fate, cleanliness is your resistance, your strength, your quiet daily prayer. The days begin to blend into one another. Now gray sky after gray sky, smoke coiling from chimneys, cold air creeping under doors no matter how tightly they're sealed. You wake with a slight ache behind your eyes, not illness exactly, but a heaviness from days filled with labor and nights too short for proper rest. You shift under your blanket and touch your forehead. Cool. That's good. You rise slowly and glance at the floor. Dust again. Always dust. You can sweep, but it never really leaves. It just rearranges itself. Still you sweep. Not for perfection, just to push back. Today you're helping prepare the village's bathhouse. Not every town has one. Yours is lucky. A simple wooden structure near the stream, lined with stones and plastered walls with vents in the roof to let out steam. It's not like the great bathhouses of old Rome, but it's something. A shared space where once a week, if the weather holds and the firewood is abundant, villagers can soak and scrub in relative peace. You gather bundles of birch and oak to stoke the fire beneath the stones. Others bring armfuls of dried herbs, mint, thyme, mugwort. You toss them into the boiling pots, filling the air with a clean, sharp scent. Steam curls around the rafters. You help line the benches with folded cloth. Then, before the others arrive, you slip in for a moment alone. You undress behind a curtain and lower yourself into the water. It's hot biting at first, but then easing its way into your joints. You exhale. The heat lifts the weight from your spine. For the first time in days, your body feels held. You reach for a cloth and begin scrubbing, not just rinsing, but really scrubbing. Your arms, your neck, behind your ears, your legs layered in the fine dust of labor. You comb your hair with fingers stiff from cold, working the tangles out gently. You tip a bucket of herb water over your scalp. It runs down your back, seeping into every crevice of tension. You close your eyes, and in that moment, you aren't just clean, you are whole again. Soon others begin arriving. You leave the bath and dry off quickly, wrapping your hair in cloth dressing in a shift still warm from the fire. You nod to those who enter, some embarrassed, others eager. An old woman with skin like worn leather, a boy missing 2 fingers, a baker with soot on her cheek. All of them come not to beautify, but to reclaim. This bathhouse isn't just about dirt, it's about dignity. Afterward, you stay to help clean. You scrub the benches, pour buckets of cold water across the stones, sweep the leaves that were tracked in. Everything returns to its natural disorder, but you leave it better than you found it. Walking home, your limbs feel looser, your skin still flushed with warmth. You pass a nobleman's rider on the road, nose wrinkled, as he watches a group of villagers empty chamber pots into the ditch. He mutters something under his breath, probably about filth, about peasants, about the stench of poverty. But he's wrong, because you've just come from a place of care, and care doesn't require gold or linen or servants. It requires intent, and you have that in abundance. Back in your cottage, you change into your resting shift, its fabric soft from years of washings. You light a small beeswax candle and sit by the fire, rubbing your hands with oil pressed from crushed walnuts. It smells earthy, honest. As the candle burns lower, you think about how many kinds of clean there are in your world. There's the ceremonial kind, washing before Mass, kneeling with holy water on your brow. There's the social kind, scrubbing for a feast or festival to be seen, admired, noticed. And then there's this kind, the private, the personal, the kind that no one sees, the kind that says this body is tired, but it is mine. It deserves care. You lie down in bed, blanket pulled to your chin, clean feet brushing against a wool-wrapped hot stone. You close your eyes and breathe in the scent of mugwort still lingering on your skin. And for once, you don't think about death or dirt or the endless toil waiting outside your door. You think about warmth, stillness, steam rising in the quiet, and how even in a time of plague and filth and superstition, someone like you, ordinary, overlooked, can still find grace. Not in gilded halls, not in a noble's perfume, but in a basin of water warmed with herbs touched by your own hands. The morning frost comes earlier now, clinging to the edges of your shutter and drawing icy veins across the window glass. Your breath clouds the air as you sit up, stretching limbs that creak from too many hours hunched at the loom yesterday. But before hunger, before chores, before anything else, you reach for your water basin. It's half frozen. A skin of ice has formed over the surface, thin but stubborn. You break it with a knuckle wincing at the sting. This is the cost of hygiene in winter pain. But you know the cold won't kill you. What it washes away just might, if left to fester. You soak a cloth and press it to your face. It's sharp and jarring, but it wakes you, clears your mind. You work your way down your arms and chest, careful around the sore on your wrist. You'd caught it on a nail 2 days ago. Still red, still tender, but not worse. You dab it with vinegar-soaked cloth and wrap it again. Then comes the mouth. You chew mint leaves sometimes or rinse with salt water, though today you've only got sage. It's bitter, but it does the job. You run a sliver of cloth between your teeth, wincing at a spot that's gone soft. You've already lost one tooth. You'd rather not lose another. A bad mouth leads to more than pain, it leads to infection. And infection in this world leads to a grave. By midday, you're in the forest gathering pine branches. Not just for fuel. Pine, when crushed and steeped, makes a sharp-scented wash that clears the air and lingers on skin longer than most herbs. You're collecting it to clean the tools in the butcher's shed. They've asked for help again. Inside the shed, the smell is heavy. Blood, tallow, earth, damp fur. But you don't flinch. You've been here before. You start with the knives, rinsing them in boiled water, then scrubbing with bristle and ash. Then the counters, wiping with cloth dipped in pine brew. The floor is thick with straw, sticky in places. You replace it with fresh rushes, toss the soiled ones into the fire pit outside. The walls get a rinse too, not because anyone told you to, but because it feels right. Because rot loves dark corners. Because meat can poison if the space around it goes sour. You catch the butcher watching you, once curiosity in his eyes. You clean like a monk, he mutters. You smile faintly, but say nothing. Monks do clean often better than nobles. In abbeys across the land, there are rules about washing hands, before meals, about shaving regularly, about scrubbing floors with lime water. In fact, some monasteries have better plumbing than castles. It's ironic, really. The poor may live in mud, but it's the rich who often reek hidden beneath perfume masked by silk. You've been near them, you know. You've stood in the shadow of a lord's daughter who reeked of honeyed oils and stale sweat, her dress spotless, but her breath foul. Her linens were cleaned by others. Her body rarely touched water. Too delicate, they said. Too pure. As if filth were beneath her. But you know the truth, it doesn't care about class. Back at your cottage that evening, you build a fire and tend to your own garments. You boil water and toss in slivers of wood ash and dried moss. One by one, you scrub your shifts, your apron, even the cloth you wrap your hair in. Your hands are raw from lye and friction. But when the fabric dries near the fire, it smells alive again. You wipe your arms and neck with the leftover pine water. Your skin tingles not unpleasantly. You sit down with a needle and thread, patching a tear in your cleanest dress. A small act, but it carries weight. You're not preparing for a feast or a noble's glance. You're preparing yourself for the next storm, the next cough, the next accident with a splinter or knife or firebrand. Because you know cleanliness isn't about charm, it's about armor. And you feel that armor now, soft though it may be. Later, as the wind howls through the cracks in your cottage wall, you tuck your feet into thick wool socks and sip warm ale spiced with cloves. You rub a bit of bear fat into your chapped lips and rest your head back. The candle flickers. Your body aches. But it's a clean ache, an earned one. And when you drift off, you don't dream of castles or fountains or silk beds. You dream of a small wash basin, warm cloths, the scent of pine, and a world where care is not a luxury, but a right. You've claimed it. One scrub, one wash, one breath at a time. This morning you wake to silence. No rooster, no shouting children, no creak of cartwheels over stone. Just stillness and the faint patter of rain on the thatched roof. It's the kind of day that seeps into your bones before you even rise. You pull your blanket tighter around your shoulders and listen. In the medieval world, rain means more than wet feet. It means soggy rushes in the floor-swollen doors that won't close and damp clothing that never quite dries. It also means an opportunity. Rainwater fresh from the heavens can be caught, boiled, and used for washing. So you do what you always do. You make it useful. You set out pots and pails beneath the edge of the roof, collecting the drops that fall steadily from the eaves. The water is cold and pure and free of the dust that usually settles in your well. You let it gather while you tend to the morning's smaller rituals. You wipe down your hands with a vinegar rag. Rinse your mouth with warm, salted ale. Check the sore on your wrist, healing. Scabbed but clean. You breathe a little easier knowing it hasn't turned. You take stock of your supplies. Your herbs are nearly gone. Soapwort root is dwindling. You're out of rosemary oil. But you still have pine needles, a handful of marigold petals, and a block of soap you traded for last week. A coarse, waxy thing, made from rendered fat and ashes. It doesn't smell pleasant, but it works. With the rain still falling outside, you decide to bathe. Not in a tub, not with rose petals or fine linen towels, but in the way you know best, slow, methodical, sacred. You warm the rainwater over the hearth, steep it with pine and marigold, and pour it into a wooden basin. You undress layer by layer, letting your skin adjust to the cold. Then, with your cloth in hand, you begin starting from the top. Hair first. You work the soap into your scalp, scrubbing gently, fingers finding the familiar ridges of your skull. The lather is thin, but the scent of pine fills the room. You rinse with another pot of warmed rainwater and feel it sluice down your back like a small blessing. Then your neck, your arms, the space behind your ears, your chest ribs, hips. You save your feet for last, always the last. You soak them, scrub them, and marvel at how they seem to carry every sorrow, every mile, every bit of history you never asked to live through. When you're finished, you dry off with the cleanest cloth you have, rough and stiff but sun-bleached. You dress again, new underthings, patched, shift woolen, overwrap, and sit by the fire to dry your hair. Outside, the rain continues, muting the sounds of the world. It feels like you're the only person alive. You take this time to clean your tools, your knife, your scissors, your spindle. You boil them in a small pot with salt and sage. You rinse and dry each one carefully. The spindle gets a rub of oil. The scissors a polish with wool. Because you know that cleanliness isn't just for the body, it's for the things you touch too. Your mind drifts to the past. To that time, the blacksmith's apprentice nearly died of a splinter turned septic. To the baker's baby, who developed a rash that took her in days. To the time your own brother was cut by a plow blade and lived only because you boiled his bandages each night. In this world, cleanliness is not habit. It's strategy. A line between life and death. You walk that line every day. As dusk falls, you brew a pot of thyme tea, inhaling its bitter warmth. You light a candle and write in your little wax tablet, not words exactly, but marks. One for every wash, every wound tended, every cloth scrubbed. You keep track, because no one else will. And tonight, as you crawl beneath your blankets, skin still tingling from the pine and rain, you realize something that's been true all along. You may not be rich. You may not be noble. But you are clean. And that is no small thing. In a world of dung-strewn streets, of infected wounds, of breathless fevers, and ash-covered skin, to be clean is to be defiant, to be alive. You close your eyes, the scent of time curling through the air, and think tomorrow the rain may stop. The mud will return. The soot will build again. But tonight you have won. The days are growing shorter now. Morning arrives late, reluctant, slipping through the shutters, like it's uncertain whether to show up at all. You lie in bed for a few moments longer than usual, wrapped in warmth, listening to the sounds of life. Beginning beyond your walls, boots on the wet path, coughing from the neighbor's cottage, a baby wailing somewhere in the distance. The world stirs, and so must you. Today is laundry day. The kind of day that requires more than just a basin and a cloth. It's when everything, your underthings, your bedding, your aprons and shawls needs a proper scrubbing. You've been saving up wood ash all week. You've soaked the linens overnight. You've drawn water from the stream before dawn, heavy buckets sloshing against your legs. You start by heating stones in the hearth, then dropping them into the wash tub to warm the water. You stir in the ash, then a handful of dried soapwort root. The mixture turns cloudy, slightly slick, with a faint, earthy scent. You test it with your fingers, rough but tolerable, and begin. You kneel for hours, knuckles reddening, rubbing cloth against wood with rhythmic effort. You beat the fabric with a paddle, rinse it in a second basin, wring it out, and hang it to dry on a rope stretched across the room. One by one, the garments drip, tiny, defiant beads of purity falling onto the stone floor. It's hard, repetitive work. Your shoulders ache. But there's peace in it, too. With every rinse, you reclaim something, an inch of space, a moment of control, a chance to say, this will not fester. This will not rot. You wash your bedding last. That night, when you slip between the newly dried sheets, the scratchy linen carries a scent like wind and ash and faint herbs. It's not sweet, not luxurious, but it smells clean. It smells safe. Your body relaxes in a way it hasn't for days. You feel the deep comfort of knowing your skin won't crawl with lice tonight, that your breath won't stir the dust of moldy fabric, that your dreams won't be tangled with the filth of neglect. Because you've cared. You've put in the effort. You've kept yourself alive. You lie still for a long time, staring at the thatch above, watching the candlelight dance across the beams, and your mind wanders just for a moment to what people in the distant future might think of you. They might imagine you as dirty, backward, covered in grime. They might joke about how people in the Dark Ages never bathed, how you must have lived in filth and stink in ignorance. But they wouldn't know you. They wouldn't know your daily fight to keep disease at bay. The scalds on your fingers from boiling lye. The sores you wrapped in clean cloth. The herbs you gathered. The vinegar you steeped. The hours you spent kneeling in cold water, scrubbing away the very things that could kill. You were clean. You are clean. Just not in the way they'd expect. Because in this time, cleanliness isn't sparkle. It's survival. It's resilience. It's you refusing to surrender to a world that wants to grind you down to dust. You close your eyes, and for once sleep comes quickly. You're not thinking about what might happen tomorrow. You're not thinking about plagues or cuts or the endless sweeping and boiling and scrubbing. You're just breathing, and you smell faintly of time. So now, with your body nestled in warmth and your mind trailing gently back from the candle-lit world of medieval hygiene, just take a slow breath in and out. Let go of the soap-scented air and the crackling hearth, the wooden basins, The pine steam, the stiff linen drying by the fire. Let it all dissolve now. You've walked through a day in the life of someone who carried their own wellness in their hands, who measured dignity not in perfumes or silk, but in a basin of warm water and a well-washed cloth. Feel the weight of that care soften on your chest. You don't need to scrub or gather or sweep anymore. Just be still. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let your eyes grow heavy. There's nothing left to tend to, nothing left to clean. Your space is safe now. The world around you can be quiet. Let the hum of your fan mimic the wind between thatched cottages. Let the cool in your room become the chill of a stone floor under bare feet, softened by the scent of rosemary. Sleep comes easy now, doesn't it? You did well today, and whether your day was bright or difficult, full or quiet, you made it here. So rest, my friend. Sink deeper into the blankets. Know that you are clean, you are safe, and you are loved. Maybe not by nobles or bards, but by the simple rhythm of care and calm that you honored by being here tonight. I'll see you in the next story. But for now, close your eyes and drift away.